YouTube? Tired Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully you guys are having a good Tuesday. Fortunately, because it's raining where I am, I was unable to work, which really sucks, but also gave me time to make additional content, which you will be seeing a little bit of sometime throughout the week, so look forward to that. But mainly came on today just to talk about the upcoming potential for a coastal storm. Almost want to call it nor'easter. I'm not really sure if I want to pull the trigger on that just yet. But fact of the matter is, we do look like we're gonna have a little snow event for the interior northeast, and there have been a few changes since I last made a video as well. So I'm gonna go into the details with that. So first, before I even get into that, I'm also gonna jump in and look at the snowfall totals as this cutoff low has begun to move off to the north and east here. So this is looking over the last 48 hours. We're looking at the snowfall totals pretty much from eastern Kansas all the way up towards the Great Lakes region. And as it stands right now, the greatest amount, of course, is over towards Minnesota. A few areas where we have some higher totals. Like, in fact, there's actually an area where we have 30 inches. Wow, it's crazy. But of course, that's north of the border where the low pressure really started to strengthen. Around here, it was just kind of, it wasn't meandering, I would say, but it was definitely not anywhere near as robust as we are starting to expect it to be over here. Plus, it seems like the cold air is a little more rich up in this area, so you can get greater snowfall totals with much colder air versus warmer air when you're closer to that 32-degree mark. That being said, though, we look through Minnesota. A lot of areas are probably averaging about maybe 4 to 6 inches. Some areas got a little bit lighter, maybe about 1 to 2 inches, maybe 3 or 4 in some spots. Northern Wisconsin got a little bit of action as well. We're averaging about 1 to 2 inches there right now. Snow still seems to be falling over there at the moment, so we'll have to see how things go. But the next area we're going to be looking at over here is over towards the Ohio Valley, and then into the northeast, of course. And then big winter over here to be watching is going to definitely be northern Maine as this storm system rolls through. So let's go ahead and actually look at the models here, because the storm tracks changed. Things are looking really interesting with that. The NAM went back to the temperature model, so we're going to start with the HRRR. So as of right now, most of that energy has gone north of the border now and is actually weakened. So we have this weak low pressure here that's been causing rain around the southeast for the better part of the day. But you can also see that little bit of moisture out on the northeast flank here, and a little bit of that cold air starting to meet up with it. And this is what's going to end up causing our snow event over here in the northeast. And as we progress this along, it looks like there's even a potential case of cold air damming. I'm going to try to actually take a sounding of that if I can. And this looks like it's... Nah, there's no cold air damming. I thought there was a potential for it, but it doesn't look like it right now. It's kind of hard to tell that without looking at the sounding, of course. Oops, jumped out way too far. But this is where we are right now. Or this is where we are, actually. Move this along, and it looks like Pennsylvania, especially towards western Pennsylvania, it looks like we're going to get into some heavy snow within the next few hours. And then as we get into the evening hours, it's going to quickly go taper off there. And there may actually be a period where New York City looks like they could get snow here. This is, of course, according to the HRRR. The NAM may show something a little bit different. It's the first time today I've actually been able to look at the latest models here. But areas like DC, for example, Richmond, West Virginia, a lot of you guys are going to be looking at rain for the most part. You guys are just a little bit too far away from that 32-degree line to get too much else. So it's going to be a cold rain, very dreary evening and overnight hours for you guys. And the HRRR doesn't really have this storm strengthening, but it does have it a little bit colder, which in turn may mean that New York City might get some snow if this run holds true. Towards the end, though, it does look like you guys end up turning back over towards rain in New York City, Long Island, and Pennsylvania, and not Pennsylvania, but Philadelphia. Once we start to push our way into the overnight hours and morning hours around the Northeast, and then looks like that warm air starts to make a little bit of a further push north, and then it looks like the only place left that's really going to get heavy snow might be towards like northern Maine. Can't rule out areas like Vermont and New Hampshire maybe getting into that snow action here, but beyond that, according to the HRRR, not really too much more to go off of here. And then once we get into Wednesday night and into Thursday, this system's out of here, and then things actually look pretty quiet for the time being. So let's go to the NAM here and try to make our comparison. So here we are looking at the NAM, and so far it looks like both the GFS, well not the GFS, but the HRRR and the NAM are relatively the same as of right now. One thing is there's a little bit more of a tail here. There is a little bit of a snow tail here that's covering the Great Lakes region. I think the NAM is kind of honed in on the potential for maybe the Great Lakes switching on here, as there is a little bit of warm air, as it seems like there's just a little bit of warm air available. And it's funny how the Great Lakes work as far as lake effect snow is concerned. That's a video in itself to make, and I eventually will make it, but it's gonna be interesting to go into detail with that. So be excited for that, but I can't really go into it right now. That video would take forever. But it does look like the snow line is a little bit further north with this versus the HRRR. It's pretty much the same story for areas like New York City. I do think Philadelphia, however, will end up being all rain according to the NAM here. And then, of course, nothing else really changes. The interior parts of New York over towards the Great Lakes gets more snow. Northern Maine gets more snow. But there is a potential that you could end out as rain over there as well, which is interesting. And then from that point, it's pretty quiet. Cold air lingers around, and then that's that. And pretty much the rest of the week looks like it's going to be pretty quiet for the most part, which is going to be a nice little change of pace here. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at the snowfall totals that we could be seeing over the next 48 to 72 hours here. So this is what we're looking at right now. We're going to be looking at a slew of models here. Not all of them, but a nice little slew of them. The ones that we're most familiar with on the channel. So what we have right now, and this is the 10-to-1 ratio here. Not my favorite to look at, I'm not going to lie. These snowfall totals could be a little bit more on the aggressive side, but if we look at the legend here, we got some areas around, brain's not working. Got areas around southern Minnesota where we could be looking at maybe 6-8 inches of snow or more. It looks like we could get some additional snow around that far northeastern part of Minnesota too, where we could be getting up to an additional foot. Wouldn't rule it out, but I do think that total's a little bit lighter than that. And then we could be getting another, I'd say 2 to 4, maybe some 6s, maybe a couple 6 to 8 inch areas around Wisconsin, around the Great Lakes, of course. And then nice little swath of snow here towards the interior northeast, especially towards northern Maine, where we could get up to about maybe 10 to 12 inches possibly there as well, maybe even a little bit more than that. Well, actually I misread that. That's about 8 to 10 inches, excuse me. Then there's a tiny little swath here where we look towards more central Pennsylvania, where we could get about a good 6 to 8 inches possibly, maybe a little more. But again, this 10-to-1 ratio is usually a little bit more a little bit more unreliable. We look at the Canadian model, and it's a nice little difference in the snow totals here. Still not sure if I agree with it based on the tracks that I've seen so far. Canadian kind of shows a more generous snow total towards central Pennsylvania here, but beyond that, it holds a lot of the same characteristics that the Euro does as well. So a couple more pockets of 6 to 8 inches off the Great Lakes here. I think they're really kind of honing on the Great Lakes machine, kind of coming to life here. You look at the GFS, and it's actually a little bit more on the conservative side. Again, not too much different. It's these little small, minute changes that we're going to end up seeing. Look towards the HRRR, and this is where I'm starting to think a little bit more. This could be a little bit more accurate. I'm definitely thinking. I definitely see a lot of agreement with the potential for the Great Lakes to kind of switch on a little bit and increase those snowfall totals, but that's going to be in local areas, so that's going to be kind of hard to track. But just based off of the totals I'm getting here, we can expect the potential for lake effect snow. Can't guarantee that it is going to be that. But for the most part, a lot of places look like they're really kind of leaning more towards that 2 to 4 inch mark. A few places could get about 6 inches even. But beyond that, nothing too crazy here. Look at the NAM, and it looks relatively the same compared to the HRRR. A little bit more, a little bit further to the south, I would say possibly, but not by much. And then of course, the further north into Maine you get, the higher the snowfall total. No big surprises there. It does have this being a little bit lighter over in this region as well, which is something I kind of agree with there. And then the last model we'll look at is the National Weather Service's blend of models. And this is where we usually will find that happy medium. This is the model I like to go to the most, but one thing about me is I always like trying to compare models, so that way we get a good number, good hypothesis on what the final snowfall total could be. Because when you get those little 10-to-1 ratios like you get with the Euro and the Canadian model here, it can get a little bit difficult trying to hone in on a final total. These shorter range models are a little bit more reliable, but sometimes they can be too conservative. So you kind of have to pick your poison in a way. So it's tricky, but the blend of models here is kind of the best of both worlds. So that's usually the totals I would go with here. I'm mainly expecting for most places around Wisconsin, Minnesota. We're expecting probably about another 1 to 2 inches, maybe a pocket where we could get 4 to 6 inches as possible towards northeastern Minnesota, and towards eastern Wisconsin. We're starting to get in that 4-inch plus territory. Once we get towards the Great Lakes over here, I'm expecting some potential where we could get about 4 to 6 inches through most of Michigan. UP that actually looks like you guys are going to get less, maybe about an inch. And then there's little pockets off the Great Lakes where we could get 6 to 8 inches possibly. And then once we start to work our way towards the interior northeast, the only other place I can expect 6 to 8 would be probably northern Maine. Anyone else, 2 to 4 inches is possible. The closer you get towards the coast here, the lesser the snowfall totals are. A lot of places are looking like they're going to get 1 inch, and then other places like around the Ohio Valley per se, they're going to get maybe less than an inch. Not a very impressive snowstorm or a snow system for you guys, but it's our wake-up call that winter is on its way. But beyond that, I think that's it for this video here. There's not really too much more I can go over here. There's no big snowstorm coming next. There's little areas where we could see little spurts of snow, but beyond that, it's not really a whole lot going on otherwise. No severe weather threat this week, which is really nice. I'm going to focus on other content as well for this channel and my second channel. But anyway, enough rambling about that. One last thing, of course, if you liked the video, if you liked what I did in the video here, definitely drop me a like. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. Are you excited? And answer this question here: if you're excited to see snow, depending on which area you're in. Do you think you'll see snow this year? And of course, if you haven't already subscribed, over 70% of people that watch this video aren't subscribed. So if you find yourself watching my videos a lot, why not? It's free, it doesn't hurt you, it helps me. But anyway, like I said, I'm rambling again. This has been Tired Metalhead Weatherman. I'll see you guys in the next video. You guys have a good night.